Okay, so as I stated before, this is a clip from Mean Girls that kind of exemplifies the peer groups in kind of from a different medium.
Here, this map is going to be your guide to North Shore. Now, where you sit in the cafeteria is crucial because you got everybody there. You got your freshmen, ROTC guys, preps, JV jocks, Asian nerds, cool Asians, varsity jocks, unfriendly black hotties, girls who eat their feelings, girls who don't eat anything, desperate wannabes, burnouts, sexually active bandites, the greatest people you will ever meet, and the worst. Beware of the plastic.
So as you can see, this clip is kind of showing the different peer groups, and obviously the movie is kind of giving it a negative twist by saying this is how we're categorized, and there's worse groups, then there's better groups, but Pugh and Hart seem to disagree with this and say, no, this is like the beginning infant stage of identifying yourself with a certain set of values. But Leviathan, he seems to agree more with the movie interpretation of peer groups. Wilcox defines identity as a transactional process, always in flux, always changing. Adolescents are never sure, like the diffusion when the adolescent can't decide. Leviathan, he kind of defines adolescent identity as something that you know immediately. When he was in kindergarten on page 4, he knows that he's gay when he's, and his teacher writes it on his report card. So, and another character in the book is Infinite Darlene, who seems really sure of herself, and she doesn't care what people think of her. She's a 6-foot-tall football player wearing heels and lipstick. So he kind of defines identity as something that is known, that you don't have to develop, you just kind of grow up with it. With the exception of characters such as Kyle and Tony, who are kind of the outcasts of the book anyway. And he also defines peer group culture differently. In another article by Adams et al., they talk about peer groups as integral to pre and post high school identities. They kind of agree with Pugh and Hart. They say that identities enhance motivation to be in school. They allow for a more fully developed identity after high school. They said that they did a whole study on ostracism and how that affects development, and they said that it leads to detrimental psychological and sociological functioning. So in other words, they believe that if adolescents are ostracized or left out of a peer group, then they will not be able to function psychologically or socially after high school. Leviathan defines peer groups in a totally different way. He does this by hardly including any peer groups in his novel. He includes a utopian setting that has virtually no homophobia, no peer groups. Everyone just kind of moves about and are accepting, such as Chuck, who has a relationship with Infinite Darlene, the jock it's not typical that a jock would have a relationship with a transgender football player who's also a diva. The only time that Leviathan really mentions any sort of peer group is with the club kids, who he defines as flat and forgettable. He states that, he describes the club kids as part of the academic subculture that are slaves to their college applications that spread themselves thinner than saran wrap with the personality to match. So the only time that Leviathan truly mentions a peer group is with the club kids, who are as interesting as saran wrap. So he basically, with this argument, is showing how peer groups they don't help define identity, but they actually inhibit it by making them flat or with the rest of the group. In other words, they're not unique because they're part of a larger group. When Leviathan mentions Amber, as soon as she separates herself from the kid club group, she gets a name. So that kind of shows Leviathan's subtle way of saying, hey, these peer groups are not the way to go. They inhibit adolescent identity development and make them like everyone else. So what is Leviathan's message? What is he trying to subvert? What is he saying? So with the combination of the utopian setting with a lack of homophobia and a lack of any kind of ostracism, and the lack of peer groups / the emphasis on the flatness of club kids, makes his argument that peer groups are detrimental to identity as they delineate personalities in favor of solidarity. In other words, he thinks through the novel that peer groups are not a sole contributor, but the sole contributor to not knowing who you are because you just conform to everyone else's values. So what does this mean, and what should we do about it? This means that peer groups can be detrimental to adolescent development, or adolescent identity development, as we said. Another article by Duane et al. States that peer groups can contribute to adolescent drug use. It can make them people who they don't want to be. They can it can delineate their personalities, as Leviathan believes. But we can't ignore the importance either. They do provide a foundation for affiliating yourself with someone else, or kind of helping you to decide what you feel. They do give adolescents a means for expression. So what I believe we need to do is provide a means for adolescents to supplement their identity, not define it. So we can do this through several ways. Dr. Phil, I found a little recommendation on his website. He says there are 6 basic ways to teach your child how to be an individual but be respectful to others and kind of be involved in peer groups. He states that we should teach values early, discourage gossip or disrespectful behavior, encourage empathy and respect, make guidelines for how you dress, so dress as an individual, not according to everyone else. Tell your child that choices affect your future, and give them support. So in other words, in order to allow for supplementation of identity without eclipsing it, we need to find a way to teach our students and children to participate in peer group culture without letting the peer group ultimately define them. And through these 6 steps by Dr. Phil, you can allow a child to be in a group without forsaking their individuality. And here's my works cited, and that's it.